Hey, my name's Taylor. This video is about how I built and set up my 6 GPU mining rig. I'm fairly new to mining. I spent many months researching YouTube, the internet, how to build, develop, and set up a mining rig, and there's a lot of videos on YouTube and things like that, but they all seem to be scattered and not put together all in one video. So I'm making this video to help those people who might be interested in getting into cryptocurrency mining, and hopefully it can help go from the beginning all the way to the end. It's mid-June 2018. A lot of people are wondering if it's still economically viable to mine cryptocurrency. Right now, Bitcoin's down lately. It's hovering in the mid 6,000s right now. Ethereum's right around $550. But my theory is mine now. The longer you wait, or if you decide to wait until the prices go back up, well, difficulty to mine those coins are simply going to go up. So you might as well mine now, hold on to those coins, and then when they do go up, well, then you can sell. So I'm doing this simply for a hobby. I don't plan on making a whole lot of money. If I do, that's great. I don't know the future. I can't predict the future. Nobody can. Is Bitcoin and our cryptocurrency is going to be extremely valuable in the future? Well, I hope so. I don't know. But like I said, if anybody tells you, hey, Bitcoin is going to be $25,000 at the end of the year, well, they have no idea. But again, I'm just doing this for a hobby, and I wanted to make this video to help anyone who's looking to get into it as well. So let's start out first of all, with the mining rig itself. I built it out of 1" by 1/16 inch aluminum. I did that because it seems more stable. I do have pine paneling on the bottom there holding all the stuff in. I'll give you the dimensions on this 6 GPU mining rig. Currently, I only have 2 GPUs. Like I said, it's mid-June 2018. I'm waiting for NVIDIA to announce their new GPUs. I believe it's the Turing level GPUs. And hopefully they'll be out in the next 6 months or so. So I'm just waiting for that. And once those are announced, I'll buy 4 more, 2 more on each side. But to start out, the frame, like I said, is aluminum. The dimensions are, it's 28 inches long, 13 inches wide, and 14 inches tall. As you can see, there's just enough space right there. These are NVIDIA GTX 1070s I'm using. Actually, the right one is at 1070, then the left one is at 1070 Ti, but the dimensions are identical for those 2 GPUs. If I had to do it again, I would probably make this width about 14 inches, just in case the new GPUs are a little longer. I only have about a ½ inch of room, but for now it's working out okay. I used these self-tapping screws. You really don't even need to pre-drill the holes. And by the way, all the stuff I'm using, I will put in a link to everything I've used and purchased below the video. Again, I used, I believe that's that's 4" pine by 3/4 inch. And I used 2 4-foot sections. And then this one to hold the GPUs up is I believe that's 2". I can't remember exactly. 2" by 4 foot. These are the self-tapping screws that I used. They worked marvelous. I got them at Lowe's, 300 count, $6.50. Also, what was extremely helpful was this L, I guess ruler you want to call it, L square, and it helped me to get all four corners level, if you want to call it. With regards to the number or the number of aluminum beams I used 3 4-foot aluminum L beams and 8 3-foot beams. They were a little bit cheaper. And also right here to hold the bottom 120 millimeter fans, I used a 1/2 inch L beam right there, and again that's 28 inches long. So I'll pick one of those up as well. All told, the mining rig cost solely for the frame was about $70. It took a very long time because this is my very first build I've ever done. It took me a good probably 10 hours to do because I'm very picky. I like things exact. If one of the side beams was not perfect, I had to redo it. So it took quite a while. I'm really happy with it. Let's continue on. Now let's go over all the components that comprise the GPU mining rig. The first thing is the Pentium processor. You don't need a real expensive i3, i5, i7 processor. 99% of mining is done by the GPUs, so you can get just a cheap processor. I went with the Pentium Kaby Lake G4560. You could get away with using a Celeron processor. However, this one was only $5 more, and it was a Gen 7 processor, so I spent the $5 extra and went with the Pentium. The motherboard I'm using is the Gigabyte H110 D3A. I have had no problems with it. It's worked great. It has mining mode. I really like it. It supports 6 GPUs. It has 6 PCIe slots. There's quite a bit of information on YouTube on how to set up the BIOS and everything like that, and I really like it. No problem with that. The 2 GPUs I currently have, the GTX 1070 Ti and the 1070. Like I said, waiting on the new ones. The RAM, 4 gigabytes, Ballistic Sport. You don't need a whole lot of RAM, that's all you need. I got an SSD, PNY, 120 gigabyte. You could get away with a 60 gigabyte. It doesn't have to be an SSD, it just saves a little bit on power and it's a real quick boot up. The Wi-Fi adapter. This GPU mining rig, is not hooked up by an Ethernet or an Ether cord. It's running off of a Wi-Fi adapter, which is totally fine. Got this on Amazon for $18 and it's working perfectly. You'll need a power cord to turn on and off your motherboard. And eventually, when I get the other GPUs, I will have a second power supply. So you're going to need this dual PSU 24-pin power supply in order to connect the two. So when you turn on your motherboard, both PSUs turn on. And this is the one I'm currently using right now. I really like it. EVGA Supernova 750 G3. It has plenty of peripheral cables, everything I need for what I have currently. And when I get to 6, eventually, like I said, I'll use the second one, so I have plenty of cables. And then finally, the PCIe risers. Like I said, I'll put a description of all these things that I have below. As far as cost, like I said, the mining rig itself was about $70. The Pentium was $54. The motherboard was $78. I got the 1070 Ti for $449 and a 1070 for $399. The RAM was $46. I got the SSD for $39. Wi-Fi adapter was $18. Power cord is $4. The dual PSU 24 pin, that was, I believe, $13. I got a smoking deal on this 750 G3. I got it for 80 bucks. I believe it's on Newegg. So I have two of them. So for $160, I have 1,500 watts of power supply for $160. Good luck finding a 1,500 watt power supply for under $400. So if you get the two, then you can do this a lot cheaper. So for 160 bucks, 1,500 watts of power, which is great, and the extra $12 to hook them up. 6-pack PCIe risers was $50. So all told, right now, the mining rig without the GPUs, just the mining rig and all the other equipment, was $484, and with the two GPUs, $1,332. So that's what I have spent so far. Also, please invest in a good surge protector. I live in Florida, lots of power outages, lots of lightning strikes, so that power, you don't want to have a very, very expensive mining rig and just have it all blown by a lightning strike. So this was, I believe, $28, really good deal on Amazon, but it was the highest, the best power surge protector I could find. After I built the mining rig frame itself, the first thing I added were these 120 millimeter computer fans. Any 120 millimeter fan is not going to put out a ton of air. As you can tell, it's pretty quiet. There is a decent amount of air coming out. As you can tell, I'm putting the fans between the PSUs and actually not on them. These Founder Editions 1070s draw in air from right here and here, and they expel them out the back. So you don't want air blowing directly on them. You want them between. You want that cool, fresh air in order to get it into the GPU. The back of this plate gets pretty hot, so it would just be radiating hot air into this other GPU, and eventually when I get the other ones, the same thing. So that's why I put the fans in between each GPU to get that cool airflow. And it's running fairly cool. I'm pretty happy with it. I used Molex cables actually to power these 120 millimeter fans. I just daisy chained them and then plugged it into the PSU Molex connector, and they worked just fine. You don't have control of the speed that way, but I don't want to plug it into the motherboard. I just didn't want to draw that much power. Actually, it's not a lot of power. It's, I think, about half an amp at 12 volts. So what's that? 2 watts each, maybe 2 or 3 watts. So 15, let's call it 15 watts of power for these fans. Not that much at all. After I installed those, actually, let me give you a little. This is my notes on how I set up the fans. Basically, I separated it by about 2 inches. I think it's 2 inches from the end to here. Installed that, left 1/8 of an inch between each one, 1/8 of an inch, and it worked out perfectly. There's 2 inches there. So again, that way when I install all 6 GPUs, they'll be between the GPUs. And there's a little handmade graph I made. So after I installed the fans, the next thing I did was I installed the PSU. Just bolted down on the back there. There's 2 bolts that I screwed into the aluminum frame, and then 1 more on the bottom here. I know it's horrible. That's a bad shot. But everything I have here is bolted down. I don't want, to pick up this rig and something go flying off and get pulled out. So everything here is bolted down except for the SSD that's actually Velcroed down. But installed the PSU, and the next step, one of the hardest parts, was installing the motherboard. But before I did that, I actually installed the RAM and the CPU fan. You plug in the CPU fan, it's that white right there. That's where you plug in the CPU fan, and then the CPU itself is right here. That's the power cord to the CPU that goes to your PSU. So I did that separately first, and there's plenty of videos on how to install a CPU onto a motherboard, so I'm not going to explain that. Next part was actually putting the motherboard onto the Pine boards, and I also used what are called motherboard standoffs. You can see that right there. There's a little black thing underneath the motherboard right there. It's called a motherboard standoff, and what it does is it simply lifts it off of the wood, because if I just laid it down, number one, I couldn't bolt it down to anything, but there's also you can see right there, there's some solder joints on the bottom. You don't want to crush that against the wood, so the motherboard standoffs allow you to raise it up a little bit, and that way you're not pushing down on the motherboard. Just line up 6 of them. There's 3 in the front. It's really hard to see, but there's one right there, and one here. I actually didn't even put the 2 middle ones in because I couldn't line them up. It was so hard. And there's one right there, and the back, they're really hard to see. 3rd one, and the 4th one is right there. So once you install that, get that bolted down, the next thing is you have to power it up, the motherboard, or supply the power, I should say. CPU cable here, your 24-pin connector is back here, and I believe that's all it is for those 2. Yeah, I think so. Next, you want to install your power button. It's real simple like this. And I had to actually look it up. I couldn't find where the power button went. It goes back here. It's really hard to see, but look on the Gigabyte website. It'll tell you exactly where to install it. Here, let's see if I can get a better view. There we go. It's not the first one, but the second 2 little plugs on the left. All right, after that, I installed my SSD. I've got 2-way Velcro. I stuck that down. SATA cable, and then your SATA cable, that's the power that goes to the PSU, and then your, I don't even know what this is called, this other cable that goes to the motherboard that can run the SSD. I forgot to mention the data cable from the SSD plugs in to the SSD here, and it came with my motherboard actually, and it plugs in right back here. All right, so before we install our GPUs, we're actually going to fire this thing up. I got it running right now, so I'm not going to go into exactly how to do that by doing it on my monitor, but I'll try to explain as best as I can. Go ahead and plug in your Wi-Fi adapter. I have USB mouse and keyboard, and then your monitor. I had a spare monitor, so no, it didn't cost me anything, but if you don't have a spare one, I think you can get one for about 80 bucks. And there's Thunder. Again, summertime in Florida. Plug in the monitor right here. And remember, you're doing all this with the PSU unplugged. Everything we've done so far, PSU is unplugged. So now that we've done all that, everything's plugged in here. We'll go ahead and plug in the PSU. to your surge protector, turn it on, plug in your monitor to the surge protector, and then on the side here there's a little power switch. Turn that on, nothing will happen yet because you haven't told the motherboard to turn on. So that's what we do. We grab this little button and we click it, and everything should come to life. You won't have Windows installed on your hard drive, on your SSD, so you'll have to make a copy of that from another computer, or you can just download a free copy from the internet. Again, there's a million YouTube videos on how to do that. Just put it onto a little USB cable, USB drive. And I have this USB extension cable because right here, this motherboard has 4 USB ports, 2 here and 2 here. I'm using them on 3 of them. The Wi-Fi adapter is kind of fat, so I couldn't plug my USB stick into it right here because it was covering up the Wi-Fi adapter. So I just used this male to female USB cord, and it works just fine. You can plug in your USB stick into here that you got for Windows. You'll plug that in, turn it on, and it'll ask you to boot from your USB thumb drive. Go ahead and install Windows, and once that's up and running, you'll update your BIOS. There's a really good video on YouTube that shows you how to update the BIOS on this particular motherboard. All right, so once you got that up and running, now we're ready to install our GPUs. Do it one at a time. Before you do that, unplug, turn off the mining rig, unplug everything. This is one thing I forgot to do, was unplug everything when I first plugged it in and it turned on. I forgot to actually unplug it. So unplug it. Put in your first one. I put in the 1070 Ti first. I plugged it into the PCIe riser, powered it, the PCIe riser, with one Molex cable. They say you could put 2 PCIe risers on one Molex cable, but I've got plenty of cables, so I'm doing each PCIe riser to its own Molex power. That's the way I do things, so it worked. Plug in your 8-pin power cord into the GPU, and then finally plug in this USB cable. It comes with this little adapter into the first PCIe slot. All right, go ahead and fire up your mining rig again, and you want to download the NVIDIA drivers. So go to nvidia.com drivers and search for 1070 Ti driver, and go ahead and download that, install it, and then restart your computer, and hopefully you can look on the device manager and it should be there. Turn off your computer again, do the same thing for your second one. If you have more than that, keep doing it one at a time. I think it works best that way. You might be able to get away with it doing more than one at a time, but it's worked beautifully for me doing it one at a time. Just repeat that process, and you're up and running. Okay, now that you have your NVIDIA drivers downloaded, you've updated your BIOS, and Windows is up and running, what I like to do is install MSI Afterburner. It allows you to monitor your GPUs, the temperature, the performance, and also allows you to overclock. So in Google, just type in MSI Afterburner, and that should take you to the download spot. Go ahead and download that, and when it pops up, this is what it will look like. As you can see, I've got, this is the 1080 Ti. It's running a nice cool 69 degrees. I've brought down the power limit to 81%. I feel you can still get maximum performance, but bringing the power down a little bit also keeps the temperature limit down as well. Core overclock 99 and memory at 318. I set the fan speed at 60. That keeps the temperature below 70 degrees. If you just leave it in auto, it'll automatically adjust the fan speed according to temperature, but I've seen it get into the mid 70s if you allow it to auto, so I just put it at 60 and it keeps it nice and cool. A lot of people say you can memory overclock this thing up to 700. I really don't want to push mine that hard. You could have crashes, stuff like that, so to me it's just not worth it. You can check on the 1070 I have. That one's running a nice cool 62 degrees. Same thing, 81% power limit, 99 and 318. So that's MSI. Now that you've downloaded MSI Afterburner, I'll give you a quick tutorial on how to mine Ethereum. There's many different coins you can mine. Again, there's many videos on the internet that will tell you how to do that. But currently I'm mining Ethereum on Nanopool right now. First thing, just go ahead and make a new folder on your desktop, create a new one, and call it whatever you want. Ethereum, doesn't matter, and create that folder. Next, go to your internet. Type in eth.nanopool.org. That'll bring up this website. In the upper part, select help. And this will get you started on mining. Go ahead and click download Claymore Miner. And in the bottom left-hand corner here, it will download. You click on it, it'll be a compressed zip file, but when you click on it, a new window will pop up, and at the top right it'll say extract all. So go ahead and click on extract all, and it'll say where do you want to extract it to. Extract it to this new folder that you've created. Once you've done that, open up your folder, and at the bottom it'll say start only ETH. So you'll right click that, click edit, and a text file will pop up. It'll look something like this right here. You can look at it under this website, the one I just showed you, under the help section, under Claymore Mining Clients. It'll look just something like this. So what you want to do is edit a few things. First, you want to edit the ePool right there. You scroll back up on this website, find out wherever you are, wherever you're closest to. I'm in the East Coast, so I just copied this, went back to my text file, not this website, but to the text file you had opened, and replaced right here with wherever you are. So mine would say ETH/US/East1 here, :9999, and then your e-wallet. You need to download an Ether wallet. Once you do that, it'll give you an Ether address. You put that right here, you put in your Ether address. If you don't do this, you'll be mining for, I don't even know if it'll work, but you won't be receiving any of the payments, so that'd be stupid. So make sure you put in your Ether address, / your worker name, make one up, miner1, doesn't matter, / your email. Your email's there. It will give you a notification if your miner has gone inactive, and that's pretty much it. X out of that new text box, and it'll ask you if you want to save your new data. Click yes. Once you do that, you'll be right back to this folder again. Double click once more, start on ETH, and a new window should pop up, something like this. And if all goes well, after about 20 seconds, you'll see these lines here. It'll tell you, it should say GPU 0. I've got two GPUs, so GPU 0 and GPU 1 will give you your hash rate, and then eventually you'll find a share every so often. So that's pretty much it. It's pretty simple. So I just leave this window up with MSI Afterburner going just so I can monitor my GPU. So I hope this video helped. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me. I'll try to check it periodically. Again, I'm relatively new to this. I'm still learning as I go, but it's a fun hobby. I hope you enjoyed it, and thanks for watching.